Hello and welcome to the Short Gun Sportsman, a podcast about handgun hunting brought to you by Handgun Hunters International. My name is Ryan Hoover and I'm your host. I believe handgun hunting is the most rewarding way to hunt, and it's something I want to share with as many people as I can. If you are at all interested in getting your own game meat, I want to challenge you to a way of hunting that is good for both your spirit and your body, so you can become the confident, self-reliant person you were meant to be. Okay, handgun hunters and other interested parties. Today we have a good one. I had a chance to interview someone who has been very requested to be on this podcast, and that is Gary Reeder. Gary is a longtime custom gun builder. He's been doing it for decades. He has his popular proprietary cartridges, the GNRs, the Raptors, etc. He's built revolvers and Encores and Ruger number ones and 1911s, all kinds of stuff. Highly knowledgeable gentleman, and I just had a great conversation with him, and I know that y'all are going to enjoy listening to my interview with Gary Reeder. Before we get into that, I want to remind all of you that Handgun Hunters International is an organization whose mission is to support and grow the handgun hunting community and the sport of handgun hunting. I personally believe, as the director of HHI, that my responsibility is to try and bring this community together as much as I can and to grow it with new members. So if you're a handgun hunter, we'd really love for you to be a member. If you're just interested in handgun hunting, we'd also love for you to be a member. We have a fantastic forum, and we have monthly giveaways that are a lot of times they're guns or optics, or we're giving away all kinds of cool stuff. We have some member exclusive content. The members get to listen to the podcast early, and it's just a fantastic place to engage this community. We're working on growing it. We're working on adding things all the time. So if you're interested, please go to handgunhuntersinternational.com and click the Join HHI button. We'd love to have you. Okay, now, please enjoy my interview with Gary Reeder. Gary Reeder, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you letting me in here.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I want to start where I start with most guys in the business, and that is to ask kind of what drew you to handguns, hunting handguns, both as a hunter and, in your case, as a custom gun builder?
Well, it didn't start off that way. I was in radio as a DJ for almost 25 years. So it didn't, playing rock and roll music had not a whole lot to do with building custom guns, but I was doing my own, screwing up my own guns in the weekend on a little shop in a garage. But that's pretty much how I got started when I retired from radio in 1985. Got into this, building the custom guns full time, and been going on since then. Don't see any reason to retire. I've had people that just about every day ask me, when are you going to retire? So, yeah, what the hell am I going to do? Sit around and watch Oprah all day long? So,
exactly right.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense even talking about retiring or slowing down, anything like that. I think somebody told me one time, if you retire now, you got about 6 months to live. They say
yeah.
Apparently, people start croaking shortly after retiring. So I don't think I'll retire for a while.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and if retirement is supposed to be the time when you finally get to do what you love, but you're already doing what you love, then why retire?
Well, I guess doing what I love is part of it. It's just as much a hassle. Looking for parts, looking for this, looking for that, trying to find something for our customer that and he's been waiting a year and a half. We've got about 250 orders in our order book, and I think there's maybe 75 or 80 of them that are over 3 years.
Wow.
So it's just, and I don't see, I don't see a whole lot of change in that. Thank goodness the guys that, have those guns that are way over, they're good about that. They know that that there's a shortage of everything from baby food to truck parts. It's just It's almost impossible to get anything.
Yeah.
Just go along with it and try our best to get it to them as quick as we can.
Yep. I used to be in the trade before I shut down my shop, so I definitely feel your pain as far as parts go. I mean, sometimes I felt like I spent more time looking for parts than working on guns.
Yeah, there's no question about that. my son Case and my wife Colleen, Colleen runs the gun shop next door, and we've just got to where rather than waste an hour and a half, 2-3 hours a day, for ourselves looking for something, I give Colleen a list. This is what I need. See if you can find it for me, and she's pretty good about finding the parts. Case is real good too. I'm computer illiterate, so it doesn't do me any good to say I'm going to go look for this or that. I wouldn't know where to start, so I'll leave that up to Case, my son, and Colleen. Yeah, it's a constant hassle, and I don't see any change anytime soon.
Well, patience is a virtue, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So when you were getting into it, did you have any mentors or anybody you looked up to, or any past gun makers whose work you were like, I want to be like that guy?
Well, in a way, yeah, but not really. It's not people that were good friends that got me into it, but there back then, I'm talking the late 60s and into the 70s, when I really kind of got it in my head. I wanted to build this or build that. There were we had a lot of heroes, I guess you might say, and various people. Bob Millick was one of the ones from Guns and Ammo. And there were quite a few. And one good friend that did kind of help me along was Lee Juris of the Automag and Supervel. Lee was my buddy. He was my hunting buddy, and I'm sure I drove him crazy at calling him just about every night, and asking, what do I do with this? What do I do with that? Or what should I do? What shouldn't I do? And I was really surprised he didn't tell me to take a long walk off a short pier, but he put up with me, and I guess he would be, if there's such a thing as a mentor, he would be the one. And here 2 years ago, he came down with cancer, actually about 3 years ago, and he called one day and he said, you've always told me that if I get within 1,000 miles of you, give you a call and you'll be there. And I said, I'll be there. You tell me where, Lee. And he said, I'll be at John Lineau's seminar this weekend. And I said, I'll be there. And that was up in Wyoming. And I went up there and I spent 3 days with him, and found out he had cancer, and it was, his time was short. And he said, I'll be honest with you, I don't want people to forget me. He said, I'm hoping that people will remember who Lee Juris is. And I said, well, Lee, we'll do our best. So we kind of made an agreement to come out, bring back a lot of his things that he did back then, the Howdah pistols and various other things that he did, that he was known for back when he had Supervel. So we came out with our own version of the Howdahs and called it the Lee Juris Howdah. That and some of the small stuff. He designed a tool for taking apart a contender. So one tool to do everything. And I think it had 7 parts to it. And we sat down and we came up with the same tool, except it would work with contender or the Encore, or really any revolver. Had 11 parts to it. And so, we came back out with his name on it. So there are just a lot of things like that. But Lee was, if there's such a thing as having a mentor, it would be Lee. Lee, he was my main one. Bob Millick, I mentioned him here. He died a while back, but he was good too. I would talk to him when there was a SHOT Show or Safari Club show or any of the big shows coming up, and I'd call him and ask him if he's going to be there, and he'd tell me, I'm going to be there on so-and-so date, and I'd say, I'll meet you. And, we would, same thing with John Linebaugh, who unfortunately passed away here just recently. John would call and he'd say, you're going to be up here to my little get-together that I have every year. And there, but John was, John was kind of like some of the other guys, like Bob Millick and Lee Juris. John would say, come on down, let's talk a little bit. And he would go get in his old Reddy pickup and drive around for 2 or 3 hours or whatever, just, friend to friend.
Yeah.
No really certain reason for the driving around, just to be with a friend, And unfortunately, those friends are getting, the amount of friends are getting shorter and shorter. It seems like every day.
Yeah.
But right now, my main hunting buddy right now, I guess you might say, and he doesn't hunt that much more, would be John Taffin. That, as far as I'm concerned, the number one gun writer in the country. In fact, we had a whole series donated him, the John Taffin Classic, that we put out 100 guns here a couple of years ago. And it was kind of funny. I called up one day to check on something with him, and Dot, his wife, Diamond Dot, she said, why on earth would anybody buy a gun with John's name on it? I said, darling, there's going to be 100 of them out there. So So anyway, we did. But John's, he's my buddy.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm not surprised, frankly, because that's what you find out is that this community is on the whole pretty great, and that the big players in it, they all know each other. They're all pretty much friendly with each other, and
Oh yeah.
yeah. And I really like that. I especially like that's an interesting story about Lee. I didn't realize that you guys were so close. Was he? Where was his shop?
Lee kind of went around two or three. He was in New Mexico for a while. He was in Indiana for a
Okay.
while. He was even down in Florida. This was back when he was the worldwide distributor of the 44 Automags.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Automag people were about to go under. If they
Right.
didn't know how to promote the product. They didn't know how to do anything. Harry Sanford was a great guy, but he just had no business sense. Let's put it like this: he wouldn't have made a good used car salesman.
Gotcha.
So Lee got with him and became the worldwide distributor, and he just, he worked his butt off, and he is what made the Automag famous. He's the one that got Clint Eastwood into carrying one of them in Sudden Impact.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, we're all good friends.
Yeah.
Another friend that's currently, he's the best there is. There's no question about it, and that would be Hamilton Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton is from Tennessee, which is where I'm from, so we just kind of became good friends that way. And we have a special hunt every year in October, or September or October. It's called the HHC, was the Handgun Hunters Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And normally we'll have 55 to 60 guys from all over the world there. It's just, it's in the mountains of Tennessee, in Monterey, Tennessee. And it's not a system where it's invitation only. It's anybody that wants to, that's a handgunner, or even if you're not a handgunner, if you just want to hang around for 3 days with people that are like-minded, then that's what it's for. We've been doing this since 2007. We made it the early fall, usually September or the first week in October. And Case, my son, and I are both going up. And at last count, we had 55 people signed up for the hunt. So
That's
it'll
great.
be a good time. And like I said, it'll be a chance to see old friends that I haven't seen maybe in a year, maybe 2 or 3 years. Stuff like this, whenever something happens, like with John Linebaugh recently dying,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of brings it to the to the forefront that I may not be around that many more years.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's probably an end in all this somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes you appreciate your friends. And
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
Hamilton, for instance, Hamilton Bowen. Hamilton, he comes to my hunts there in Tennessee. He hasn't made every one of them, but he's made
Mm-hmm.
several. And Hamilton's first year or so, he said, I kind of hate doing this. People think I'm stealing your customers. I said, Hamilton, you're here because I invited you. I want you to be here. You're a good friend. And he did. So it's just, friends helping friends is what this industry is about. And these days, we need it.
Right.
There's not at all unusual for one of the other custom gun guys to call and say, I need this or I need that. And it's not unusual for me to call somebody and say, I've got a customer waiting on this. I can't find it. None of my distributors have it. They don't think they're going to have it for a good long while. I got a guy who wants a 357 44 Baines and Davis. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes, sir.
Way
Mm-hmm.
back when. It was the old 44 Magnum neck down to 357. It totally flopped as a revolver cartridge because it backed out, locked up the cylinder. But it was intended for the contender, and it worked fine for that. But I've got one of my customers that is wanting that, and I'm having a hell of a hard time getting the reamer, getting the certain twist rate on the barrel, and all this guy's been waiting 2.5, almost 3 years now, and
Wow.
I still don't have anything for him. But I talked to him this morning and told him, I'm still working on it. I haven't forgot you. And he said, oh, I know. He says, like that everywhere. So,
Yeah, exactly right.
Like I said, it's just friend helping friends these days.
That's good. Well, I want to talk just a little bit about. You're very popular in Handgun Hunters International. A lot of devotees of Gary Reeder.
I must owe somebody some money or something.
And everybody was excited to hear that you're going to be on the podcast. So I had a bunch of people, telling me what they wanted me to ask you. And one of the questions that I got was, somebody asked if you could go over kind of what you think the keys to an accurate revolver are. Like if you buy a factory gun, what are the things that the average shooter is going to want to do to make sure that it, kind of lives up to its potential? I know we're not into the realm of custom yet, but just kind of what your philosophy on that is.
Well, it's these days, it's a bad situation. I got in a 44 Magnum this morning, and I'm not going to say what company made it or anything, but I got it in expecting big things out of it. Normally, people will send me their gun, and we'll build our custom gun on that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some guys that just don't have the time, don't want to have the time. They don't want to mess with gun shows, so they'll say, well, you just furnish the gun, which it costs them more, but we'll do it anyway. But really planning on this gun to come in. It was going to be in one of our custom calibers. The hammer was horrible coming back. The barrel cylinder gap, which factory-wise is normally around 4 to 5 thousandths, but this one was 9 or 10.
Wow.
It was just you could have dropped a dime through there. And it's just when you got that, you're going to lose 250, maybe 300 feet per second. So that's one of the first things that I look for. If somebody comes in and they say, I've got this gun, what do I need to do to make it shoot? Well, I've got 3 things that most of the gun magazines have written us up about it, and one of them is our positive performance package, which is our front part of the barrel, the back part of the barrel, and an action job. Those 3 things, in most cases, if you do it right, will cut your groups in half and make everything a lot smoother, too. But the throat of the barrel, that's our maxi throat. I want that bullet to be completely in the barrel before it ever encounters rifling. And a factory barrel, you can look at the end of the barrel there in front of the cylinder, and you can see jagged edges. The rifling starts right there.
Right.
And that's the first thing the bullet hits is that, and that can really screw up your accuracy. On the other end of the barrel, the crown itself, our deep dish crown, you got it where it drops down in there pretty good ways, an eighth of an inch or so from the end. It's like a funnel. But if you drop that gun, if it drops invariably, it's going to hit on the muzzle, and your accuracy is gone. So we do our deep dish crown, our maxi throat, and a good action job, and in most cases it'll cut your groups in half. It's not at all unusual for a barrel from the factory for the hole in the barrel not to be in the center. Even if it's a few thousandths off, that means that unless that cylinder is exactly the same as that, then it's going to shave off a little lead or shave off some jacket or whatever, and it's not going to be accurate. So check the gun out, good. If you go to a gun show and there's a gun on the table, it looks good, price is right, pick it up and look at it. Every gun, no matter what, if it's got the transfer bar, is going to have a ring around the cylinder.
Right.
You can't stop it. You can get it down to where it's just barely there by polishing the top part of the bolt as it comes up to lock the cylinder in place, but that's going to rub. If you've got a transfer bar, it's going to leave a line on that cylinder. So, cock it cup time, you can tell, anybody can tell, as that hammer comes back. If it's rough, you can feel little glitches in there as the hammer comes back, like it hits this and has to go over this little hump and over this little hump, and you can tell. And then hold it up to the light and look between the barrel cylinder gap between the front part of the cylinder and the back part of the barrel. And again, it should be about 2 thousandths. You should barely be able to see light through there. Just little things like that. It doesn't matter if the grips fit or not, or if the gun has got a little blemish on it, the bluing maybe is not as great as it should be or something. Those things can be taken care of. That's no big deal. But if it really needs a good action job in there to even make it shoot halfway decent, then I would say pass on it. There's bound to be another one down the road. So,
right. So moving to your proprietary cartridges, you're well known for the GNR series of cartridges. Can you tell me what your thinking was behind the development of them? When did you start? When did the first GNR cartridge come out?
Well, the first one was our 41 GNR, and that brings us back to Lee Juris again. Lee had out a 41 caliber auto mag. It was the 41 JMP, which is the Juris Magnum pistol. And Lee sent me one of the first ones, which was a 44 auto mag down to 41. And for about 2 years, I used it. Hell, I killed everything from skunks to caribou with it, and just one day I asked him, I said, has anybody ever thought about doing this on a 44 Magnum revolver? I mean, a 44 Magnum standard case Remington Magnum. He said no. He said that's too simple. People want to neck it down to the 8.7 Kropotchnik or something. That was just something too simple for the guy. And I said, well, let's consider it done. So within 2 weeks, I had the reamer built and had my first barrel done. And in fact, I bought a factory 14-inch contender barrel. The Super 14 had just come out, and I bought one in 41 Magnum, chopped it down to 9 inches, did some checking on it, and I figured I'm going to burn all the powder in about 9.5 inches. Why, try to carry around a 15, 16-inch pistol. But and then I used that, and I still use that barrel. That's this HHC that's coming up here in 5 or 6 weeks, whatever. I'll be using that on that hunt as I've used it in Africa, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere, and I still use it. But that was, if Lee had said, no, that's not a good idea, don't do that, or, anything, I probably would have dropped that. But that was my first one. And then after that, we found little reasons, like a gun guy has to have a reason to buy a new gun. We kept finding little reasons. We had an Africa hunt coming up in '92, which was my first Africa hunt. And just for the hell of it, I thought, I'm going to take my 41 GNR, and I want something big. I want something that'll equal the 375 H&H. Everybody said, "How you're insane. The contender won't handle those kind of pressures. It won't." But I said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to see. So about that time, we got some 405 brass in for a customer. And I thought, golly, how would that look neck down? So I necked it down to 375, checked the powder capacity, and powder capacity was just a little bit less than the 375 H&H. And we did some testing, and we ran a 12-inch barrel in 375 H&H, and a 12-inch barrel in our 378 GNR, which is our second cartridge. And they were within 50 feet per second of each other. So, and the recoil wasn't that bad. We have a really good muzzle brake that's been rated top of the line. But we put that muzzle brake on there, and hell, anybody could handle it. I mean, it was about like a 44 Magnum, but you got to expect that in a hunting handgun.
Sure.
But the 378, I've taken just about everything there is to take around this whole world of ours with that, or my 41, and it still works. And in fact, my son Case, he still uses one I built for him. Hell, he built it himself several years ago, and this hunt coming up in September, he'll be using that. His is on the Encore frame, because that way he can load it up a little bit hotter. But he's taken just about everything there is to take with that. It's just there's always gun people are always going to find some sort of excuse to come up with something new or to buy a new gun. Or I've got a good friend in Tennessee who is a Ruger number one fanatic. I've built him several full custom number ones, a lot of them with African calibers. His wife doesn't want him to have guns at all, period. But anyway, we did this Ruger number one. He showed it to her, and she, of course, flipped out about it. But she didn't say too much because she couldn't. He'd already paid for it. But anyway, so he came back a short time later. And he said, by the way, he said, I want another Ruger number one. I want it in so-and-so caliber. He said, I need it exactly like this one here. And so we did, and we built him one. And he said that when I went home, his wife said, now what have you got? He showed it to him. He said, I've already shown you this a dozen times. It's the same thing I showed you before. And he put it in his safe. And last I heard, he had 11 Ruger number ones that we'd built for him, and all in different calibers, but they were all exactly alike.
That's great.
So, gun guys will find a reason,
Yes, sir.
Excuse if they want to use that, to
absolutely.
buy or have a new gun built, whatever.
So how many GNR cartridges are there now? I know you have the 405 base.
They listed, last count, we had 64 different calibers. So we've got not only the GNR stuff, we've got a series called the Falcons. We've got the Raptors. We've got a series of Banshees. So there's several different calibers on that. And, so there's several of them. And not all of them have my name on them, but when you register a cartridge with the feds, you got to give them something more than just a name. You just can't say, here's my 44, period. Just like the 44 is the 44 Remington Magnum.
Right.
So everything has to have a name. But we've got 64 of our own cartridge now, starting at 22 and going all the way up to, we've got a 600 caliber. We've got a 586 caliber. Most of those are pretty much built on the Ruger number one. So they're a little bit rough, rough in a handgun.
Yeah, I imagine.
So, but other than that, I think we keep Hornady in business. But we, all of our series, all of our dies are made by Hornady Custom. And we've got dies for all of our cartridges. So we've got a ton of dies in stock, and we try to keep them all in stock if possible.
That's good. So what would you say your most popular proprietary cartridges are? Has it changed, or what is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's, and when I come out with a new cartridge and we kind of make it a big whoop-de-doo on our, our website about it and show pictures of it, and a couple, 2 or 3 of our guys that hunt with me in Africa, and I've been to Africa 16 times now, and there's several of the guys that have been with me every time. I'll tell them about this, and I say, let me make you a barrel and see what you think of it, and I'll give them the barrel and give them a good price on it, and they'll go with us on a hunt, and they have to tell everybody about it, and they show it. So it's not necessarily that I am promoting it, but if you got some good customers, they'll help you promote that cartridge. And
absolutely,
that's pretty much a way. the way it goes. But 41 GNR is one of my top 5 cartridges. My 378 is again in the top 5. Most of the cartridges that are going to be in the top 5 or so are going to be the bigger cartridges. My 410 GNR, which is a 454 Casull, nicked down to 41. On paper, it'll equal the 454 out to about 60 yards, and past 60 yards, it'll actually shoot flatter and faster than the 454. I took a Savannah Buffalo with it, the first gun that I built in there. But our 41 stuff, there's a lot of 41 freaks out there. And we've got, I think, 5 or 6 different 41 calibers out there. And, some of them are strictly meant for rifles. Some are meant for encores, some for contenders. Our 429 is another good one, too. That's the 454 neck down to 44. And there's several of our things that will do the same as a 454, but without all that horrible recoil. Our 455 GNR is the 475 line ball, neck down to 45. So you can have the same amount of powder, say 30 grains of powder, for instance. You can do 30 grains of powder in a 454 Casull case with a 300 grain bullet, and it kicks the crap out of you. But you do it in a 475 line ball case, which you've necked that case down, you got considerably more case capacity. So the powder is not so heavily compressed, so you don't have all that horrible recoil coming back at you. But those are just some of the ones that people, and a friend of ours here recently in, I don't know where it was, one of the African cartridge companies, countries, he took a nice line with my 310 GNR, which is the 405 neck down to 30 caliber. And it's, power-wise, it'll almost pretty much equal the 300 Winchester Magnum. So there's a reason for all of them, even if I have to sit and think about a reason to come up with something. We'll do it.
Yes, sir. While you're talking, I was just thinking, and this is pure curiosity on my side. I know that a lot of times the reason for these different iterations of the same, small C caliber, like 41, 44, 45, is to increase velocity. And so and I know obviously you're working on the recoil side as well, but with the velocity thing, what have you found with bullets? I mean, because I know sometimes, like we've seen the reverse, I shoot a 730 Waters Contender a lot, and I've found from my experience that the velocity range of that cartridge out of a 14-inch Contender makes it so some of those 7mm bullets that'll blow up with a Magnum, you slow them down, they become more controlled expansion. So what about, if you push a bullet past its capabilities or under its capabilities, are there bullets out there that really suit the needs of your proprietary cartridges?
Unless you run into something real quirky that's strange or uses a different bullet or a different speed or anything like that, in most cases you don't have to worry too much about that bullet blowing up. I don't know that I've ever had one that did, other than I picked up a box of 22 caliber stuff one time. I was hurting for a hunt. I don't remember if it was prairie dog or what it was, but I had a hunt coming up, and the only bullet that I could find, or that my wife could find through our distributors, and I said, well, go ahead and grab it for me. And I noticed when I opened the box up, it said not to be over 3,000 feet per second or something like that. I can't remember what. So obviously it was intended for lower speed use. Mm-hmm. So I didn't use that one. I didn't want to take a chance on it blowing up on me or whatever. Not blowing up on me, but blowing up on impact. Mm-hmm. But most of your cartridges, if they're a standard cartridge, like a 30 caliber, a 7mm, 6.5, any of those, they're not. You don't have to worry about those. The chances of those bullets blowing up on impact is slim to almost none. Mm-hmm. I've had stuff that came apart on me. Jacket went in one direction and lead core went in another direction, but it wasn't that it blew up on me. It was the fact that I was using it against an animal that was not intended for. Mm-hmm. My main bullet company that I really, really like is Sierra and Hornady. Those two companies, anything that I need, they're going to be there with it. And I found that through the years. My 41 GNR started off with 170 grain Sierra. I've still used that. So the bullets these days are much, much better than they were back in the 50s, early 60s, when, you really had to watch, what you used that bullet for or whatever. We had on that lion hunt of mine here just recently, I was trying to figure out a cartridge that I knew would work for a 600-pound African lion. and I found a white box of bullets stashed in among all my other crap in my reloading room, and it was 350 grain jacketed soft point. No name of who made it, no company, no nothing. So I thought, what the heck? I'll try that. And sure enough, for that Lion, it didn't blow up anything, but the nose did deform. It started off 50 caliber, and it was probably 55, 56 caliber when it ended, but it did exactly what it was supposed to do. So I wish I knew who built that bullet. I'd tell him thank you. But somewhere along the line at one of the custom shows or something, somebody probably came up to me and said, here's some of my stuff. Try this and see what you think. But I didn't write anything on the box, so I don't have any idea who made it. But it was a great bullet. I still got it.
So I assume you personally, you use mostly jacketed bullets?
Yes and no. When I came up with my original 510 GNR, I talked to Kelly Brost, who had at that time Cast Performance bullets. I said, I need a 510 caliber, good lead bullets, hard lead bullets, somewhere in the 300 grain, 350 grain with a gas jack. And he said, let me see what I can do. And this was only had about maybe a month before my hunt coming up, because I had a hunt for bison scheduled. And he called back and said, I don't have anything. My mold has not come here yet. I don't have anything. He said, so what, do you have anything at all, period? He said, I've got some, I think it was 300 grain, but he said, there's no gas check on them, and they're sort of soft. And I said, well, send me 50 of them. Let me see what I can do. And sure enough, if I got it over 1,100 feet per second, it would just lead my barrel up like crazy. Mm-hmm. But if I kept it down to 950 to 1,000, it is fine. No lead, no problem at all, and very accurate. And I shot 2 bison with that particular bullet, and both of them, one hit him on a point of shoulder and surprised me. The bullet broke that shoulder and went on through. The second one hit the second big bull in the throat and came out the rear end. So I don't have any idea what that bullet did, but you just kind of have to find the right bullet for that cartridge. We normally will give people target with the custom guns that we build for them. And I always like to let them know that, that doesn't mean that that your gun's going to shoot a 1-inch target. I mean, a 1-inch group at 25. That's just what this particular barrel, that's what this particular gun likes. And I try to let them know what brand it was and what the weight was. I like the lighter weight bullets. That's one thing that John Linebaugh and I, we used to butt heads back and forth. He likes those big, those big, heavy 450, 500 grain lead bullets. And I don't. I like to keep it under 350 in any situation. Even like I said, my 510 GNR was using 350 grain.
Well, I'm gonna ask your opinion on something which I know is always dangerous for a custom gun maker. But tell me what you think of all this monolithic bullet craze.
Well, it's got its own uses. Let's put it like that. In Africa, for dangerous game, a lot of times your professional hunter will tell you to bring solids. I've taken 2 Cape Buffalo over there. Both times I loaded up solids, and the professional hunter in both cases, I said, what do you mean load? Solids, hollow points, jacketed, what do you want? And he said, just load up some soft points and some solids. So I did that. And when we saw our first Cape, and he was coming out of some brush, and wasn't too happy to us being there. And I said, I had an encore. And I said, what do you want me to throw in there? He said, put the soft point in there. I said, you sure? And he said, put the soft point in there. I did in one shot, and the point of shoulder, and then the buffalo dropped. And I said, I would have thought you'd have said the solid. He said, no, the solid is, if we were going after elephant or going after something that's going to take a lot of punch to put him on the ground, then I would have probably told you solid. He said, but Cape Buffalo is, for all practical purposes, they're a thin-skinned animal. If you can break that front shoulder down, you got him. So.
So when you say solids, just so I'm clear, when you say solids, are you talking about a completely encapsulated lead core, or are you talking about the copper, all copper?
No, these are solid
okay.
brass.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Kelly Schlepp was an also good friend. He was one kind of introduced me to his punch bullets several years ago. A very, very good bullet. I haven't used them that much, because most of the stuff that I've got load data built up for was with a lead core bullet. So I never did really get too much into the solid brass or solid copper, whatever bullet. I know there's a call for them, and especially with all this junk in California these days, and unfortunately it's headed east. but they're trying to stop us from using lead totally. So it may be a situation where where we have to switch. And I hate that because I like a good lead core bullet. For me, they work. And,
not just for you, Gary. I mean, I think they've kind of proven their worth over hundreds of years, right?
Yeah, it's and it's hard once you've got something developed. Like my 41 GNR, it likes 170, 180 grain bullet, and that's it. But the thing is, it's not necessarily that their gun is saying, okay, that's all I want. It's the fact that that's all I ever tried through it.
Mm-hmm.
I never did go anything heavier than 180. And now on my 410 GNR, that was the one for the bigger bullets, the heavier bullets. I've got a good friend that's taken several bison with these the solid, no lead on them at all, but the solid brass or copper bullet, and he's done with my 416 GNR, which is like a 348 case or the 50 Alaskan case, neck down to 416. But he's taken several of that, and it works for him. He's very good. He's a good shot anyway, but he's taken most of them. He's taken one shot, so it's only where you put the bullet.
I know you guys are super busy. You have hundreds of guns on your books at all times. What do you think right now is the kind of work you're getting the most call for?
Well, we kind of had to drop some of our. We had at one time we had 71 different series of guns that we're building, and we've had to drop several of them down. Like we were building 5-shot revolvers on the Red Hawk and the Super Red Hawk, 5-shot barrels on 5-shot cylinders rather on the GP 100s and stuff. But those parts that we build our own barrels, our own cylinders, 5-shot cylinders. But the small parts that are in there, the extractors, your star extractor, all this stuff we get from Ruger. They don't have them right now. They don't have enough that they can, say, okay, yeah, well, here's 10 here. This will hold you over or whatever. So what I've had to do is I've had to drop several of my series because I don't want to take the order and say, okay, I'll build you whatever you want, 500 line ball, 475 line ball, or 510. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, I'll build it for you, 5-shot cylinder on your Red Hawk. And I don't want to do that. And then 2 years from there, and then telling him, well, I still don't have the parts yet. That bothers me. I've got 2 good friends right now that I've had their guns in here for at least 3 years, maybe more than that. And I told them, I've got my own frames. I've got my own single action frames. That they're big, beefy frames. So I said, well, let me pick out my best frame. I'll put you a good barrel on there and whatever caliber you want. You can use that Red Hawk that you've had in here for 3 years. Use that as your deposit, and I'll fix it up so you don't owe a penny. And both of them that have these guns has been in here for 3 years, 3.5 years. Both said the same thing. No, I'll wait. Just don't hurry. I'll wait. And that bothers me a little bit because I know how I would be if I couldn't get what I want right now. I'm like a lot of gun guys. When I see something, I want it now. I don't want to wait a month or 2 months, 6 months. I don't want to do that.
Well, I just want to know, like, if someone calls Reader Custom Guns today, what is the most likely thing that they're asking you guys to make them?
Single actions, big caliber single actions. Everybody still wants the 500 line ball, the 475 line ball, our 510, our 429, or our 411. That's pretty much the 5 main revolver cartridges. And we built them on the customer's base gun. We have managed to keep our prices down considerably. Not that I'm being a nice guy or anything like that, but it's just I'd rather make 10 people happy with full custom guns than one guy that's never going to shoot it, going to put it in his safe and only show it to his buddies on weekends, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but those are the main cartridges, and a lot of people too. Now that John is gone, kind of like they figure that there will no longer be a 475 line bore or a 500 line bore, which is totally wrong.
Right.
We've still got I don't know how many orders, but we've got quite a few orders in our order book for those 2 calibers. So as long as guys are going to hunt with their handguns, we're going to have a call for some of the larger calibers.
Yeah. If you kind of went over this earlier, but just if somebody is going to, because I know as a former gun builder myself, garbage in, garbage out kind of holds true. So if you're, counseling somebody who wants to send you, I assume that all of your guns are built on Rugers. Is that true? Your big 5-shot stuff?
You mean, are we only doing them on Rugers? Is that what you mean?
I mean, like that's the most common.
That's the most common thing, because that's
right.
the easiest thing
Yeah,
for them
right.
to find. We've got, like I said, we've got our own heavy duty frames, which are considerably bigger and beefier than the Ruger, and we've also got our own stretch frames, which are good for the larger calibers. It's considerably more beefy, I guess you might say, than the old original Ruger 357 maximum frame. And we've got, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of our own cartridges now that are, the big ones that uses the 500 Smith & Wesson case, or uses the 50 Alaskan case, or any of those bigger cases, capacity-wise, for hunting purposes. So they're not. It's not like we're going to tell them, well, you better get it now, or you're not going to be able to get it.
Oh,
I don't see them having a problem if there's something that they want that that we can't build for them. Let's put it like that. Some of the stuff with Thompson Center now gone, and I'm hoping that they come back. So I don't know, and that's going to hurt us. I mean, that's God knows how many Contender and Encore barrels we've got out there, and there's a lot of it. J.D. Jones and we don't always see eye to eye, but I don't know too many friends that do always see eye to eye with each other. But J.D. is a good guy. And there for a long time, in 77, somewhere along in there, early 78, J.D. and I were the only two that were making barrels for Contenders other than Thompson Center. We didn't have any of our own car. I didn't even have the 41 GNR back then. So we just like J.D. did. We just, if somebody wanted a 50-70, we would build them a 50-70. If they wanted this or that, whatever. We'd pretty much build it. But these days, with I've got enough parts to build maybe 10 barrels. I think about 4 or 5 Encore and 4 or 5 Contenders. And I kind of hate to build them, because that'll mean that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like saying the light at the end of the tunnel and somebody just closed the door on us.
Right.
It's going to have to be something special. I'm not just going to build just some old barrel. And there's a lot of other guys too, apparently, are kind of picking up the ball where I've left off.
Well, if you could choose your favorite gun you've ever built, what would it be?
Oh,
I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it is a tough question. It would be one of my hunting guns. If somebody said, okay, you can only have one gun, to do whatever it is, it would be probably, I'd have to sit down and think good about it and maybe flip a coin, but either my 410 GNR, because that's capable of taking the big stuff, the bears and things, or my 510. One of those two would be the revolver cartridge that works well in revolvers and also in Contenders or Encores. If they said, okay, it's got to be an Encore cartridge, and my 378 would probably be the one I would want to go with.
Well, good. I'm pleased to inform you that nobody is actually asking you that question, but somebody did ask me to ask you what your favorite was. And lastly, I know that you have taken, like you said, 16 trips to Africa. Some of our members, I think, Mike Mendez. He went with you.
He's been with me he's been on 2 or 3 of my hunts with me.
And so,
Michael and I, it's just kind of for a funny, real quick story.
Yeah, sure.
Here. Going to Africa, one of our hunts, the Delta wasn't flying, so we had to find some funky airlines to get us there, and we flew to Atlanta, to Dallas rather. And from Dallas, we took Qatar Airlines. From there, we flew that to Atlanta, and Atlanta to Qatar, and Qatar to Addis Ababa, some other place. And anyway, the 2 hours that we were stuck in Qatar, all my guns, my clothes, everything were stolen.
Oof.
I had nothing. I had nothing except a little small carry-on thing, and the shoes and the clothes that I wore. That was it. So when we got to camp, I waited a couple of days. John, the professional hunters, he said, just hang in there. He said, they may have just got misplaced. So like on the 3rd day, I said, John, this is bull. I said, I came over here to hunt. I'm going to hunt. He said, you going to hunt in your house shoes? Because all I had was my house shoes.
Mm.
And I said, well, whatever I got to do, I do it. And I said, I'll borrow a gun if somebody's got something, because I was going for Cape Buffalo. Mendez said, I built him a 454 Casull. He said, I've got that. I got 5 rounds of ammo left. He said, if you want, you can use that. So I took his 454. I tried one shot. It was dead on. And I didn't want to shoot anything more because I knew it only left me with 4. But first day we didn't see anything. Second day we got on a couple of big bulls. I mean, these are big boys. And John Abraham, professional hunter, said, come on, let's go get that one on the left or whatever. He said, that's our boy. Let's go get him. And I said, John, all I got is a 454. He said, you were always telling me about shot placement. He said, put the bullet where it needs to be. I said, well, let's do it. Anyway, we got up to about 25 yards of this buffalo. We got actually about 50 yards, and he kept on snorting and pawing the ground and saying bad things about my mother. And finally, John said, let's ease up closer to him. I said, John, you sure about that now? I said, I got to say, 4 rounds here. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, I got a double rifle. He said, I might even carry it with me. I said, oh, whatever. So anyway, we got up to about 25 yards of me, maybe a little bit more. And John said, put the first round on the point of shoulder. I did, and the buffalo kind of stumbled a little bit and acted like he was going to try to get over. And John said, hit him behind the shoulder next. And I hit him behind the shoulder. And you could see it. He started blowing blood out the nose, and blood was everywhere. And he went about 10 feet and toppled over. And it really surprised me with that. And talking to Michael Mendez about it, and, we were talking about the hunt and how it did real well. And Michael said, well, I didn't tell you, he said, but I didn't like the recoil. He said, those were loaded up to hot 45 long Colt specs. So I guess I'm the only one I know of that's ever shot a big Cape Buffalo, top 2 or 3 in the world Cape Buffalo with 45 long Colt. So,
wow.
But it did, it did the deal, and I don't tell too many people about it because everybody looks at me like need to go back to the mental institution where I came from. But Michael was there, and Dave Manson of Manson Reamers was there. So several of the guys were there, and they know it's no bull. That buffalo went down with 45 long Colt loads.
Interesting. That's a great story, Gary. Absolutely. Okay, so wrapping it up, is there anything that, you've been in the industry, you're such a stalwart in the industry. Is there any advice that you would have, just quickly to anybody, any current handgun hunters or anybody who's interested in getting into it?
Best thing would be to go to one of the shoots. And I don't know when this is going to be aired, but if it's between here and September the 21st, join us in Monterey, Tennessee. There'll be probably 60 handgun hunters from all over the world. There'll be a lot of guns on display, and it won't cost you a lot of money at all. So, if it's something like that, then this way you can go. If you don't hunt, you can go there and you can meet these people, meet these handgun hunters that maybe you've read about on the books and the various different gun magazines and such. You can meet them, and talk to them, and they'll let you shoot their guns. And it's just a good thing. It's one of the best things I've ever done is to start this, and I really look forward to it. I've got some good friends that I've known forever. They used to hunt with in the late '60s, and they're a long time when I was still in radio. And the owner of the radio station there said, we just bought another station on an island off Sarasota, Florida. We want you to go down and run it. So I took 5 or 6 DJs with me, and we went down and ran it. But at that time, when I left there, I left several good buddies that I'd hunted with there throughout Tennessee and everything. And I didn't see them again until once we started this HHC. I had one of them call and he said, is this Gary Reeder? And I said, yeah. He said, do you remember me? And I did. I recognized his voice. But it's turned out to be something good for me. So it's got a chance to spend some time with good friends. And, if somebody wants to join it, call me at the radio station. I mean, not radio station. Call me here at the gun shop.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the name, phone number, whatever. And that way you can join us there. And it's just 3 days. So spending time with good friends, and it's just nothing better.
I agree. And what good advice to somebody who wants to get into it to engage our community, because I have found, and talking to you just reinforces this, that, you're right. Sometimes people who get along and friends or in the same business who have the same interest don't always agree on everything, but we are always interested in furthering the sport as a whole. And so coming to engage the community is fantastic. I'm going to be at HHC. I'm really looking forward to shaking your hand and seeing all the folks there, because you're right. It's a heck of a deal, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's everything in the world there, from bison to African game, and just a little bit of everything. And it's not one of these places where there's an animal out in a 2-acre pasture and they say, here he is, I just let him out of the stall, go ahead and shoot him. You got to hunt for him. So I've seen guys get there that are good hunters and not get anything at all because they just couldn't get up on the animal that they were trying to. And this place is full of hogs. It's just a good time.
Excellent.
And, if anybody comes, make sure, come up to me, let me know who you are. So
Absolutely.
Let me shake your hand,
Absolutely. Well, Gary, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast with me today. Fantastic episode. Like I said, I'm looking forward to meeting you as we record this next month. And thanks again, sir. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Hope you have a good one.
Thanks.
Man, talking to Gary just reaffirms to me how great our community is. I have had nothing but good experiences talking to other people in this business who are just interested in preserving the handgun hunting community. And it's just fabulous to be able to have that interaction with other people. So I really enjoyed that interview. I learned a lot about what Gary has done over his interesting career, definitely fascinating stuff. And he is still rocking and rolling, still going strong. I know a lot of our HHI members use Gary's guns, have gone hunting with him many times, and it's just great to have been able to talk to him. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please like it and subscribe to it and share it with all your friends. Give us a good review, because that really helps our podcast get noticed. And as the only podcast dedicated solely to handgun hunting, we really need your help with that. So thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Handgun Hunters International. HHI is the only organization dedicated solely to supporting and growing the sport of handgun hunting. Membership gets you access to our great, well-moderated forum where friendly handgun hunters of all experience levels share stories and information from folks that have actual experience in our sport. We also host giveaways to our members of guns, gear, and ammo every month, and each prize is worth several times what membership costs. In addition to this podcast, we publish a free digital magazine, The Six Gunner, which is written exclusively by HHI members. If you are a handgun hunter or support handgun hunting in any way, you need to be a member of HHI. Join today at handgunhuntersinternational.com. Again, if you have any questions on how to get started in handgun hunting, please reach out to me at ryan@handgunhuntersinternational.com. If you think we deserve it, please leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to follow Handgun Hunters International on social media at Handgun Hunters INT. God bless and good hunting.